Molly and what she's going to share with you. I met Molly earlier this year in November of 2014, so that would have been late last year, and was a new member to the Aconcagua Partnership. And right from the very beginning, I could recognize that there was something extraordinary about Molly and her journey through life. And if you have an interest or open to being witness to a story of resilience and grit and tenacity and love, you're in the right place. So I just want to share with all of you that my experience of Molly has been all of those things and many more. And it's a true gift to have her here sharing her amazing story with all of you, and welcome and enjoy the next little while with Molly. So thank you, Molly.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. It was awesome. I was telling Mark, like, oh, you could do a great introduction if you could make it 45 minutes. That would be perfect. So I'm a little surprised now how much time I have left. Another funny thing was we were sitting in a meeting about a week ago, going through what we were talking about today, going through some of the words and values that we wanted to embody today. And somebody suggested authentic. And I leaned over to Mark and I said, you know, I just really feel like the word authentic has totally lost its authenticity. And he looked at me and he's like, that's in your title. And I was like, oh, right. It's in my title, Authentic Success. And the interesting thing about authentic success is both of those words make me want to throw up a little bit. And so when you put it together, that's probably the worst title that I would want to create. But having had Stephen McGee as a coach, and as you guys heard this morning, he's not a really big fan of hiding. So I've learned in my life that when I'm afraid or when I'm in pain, I no longer hide from it. I just go straight in. So I'm like, okay, this is great. I'll just use that as my title, the two words that I'm most uncomfortable with, and we'll just go from there. So probably would be a really good idea is to bust down the air wall, because everybody else that read that title today and said, wow, that makes me want to throw up, probably opted in for love and inspiration. But here we go. So success. Thinking about success, we've heard success a lot today. About success in our family life, success in our home life, and how we're combining these things. So I just want to slow down with that word success. And how's it going for you? And success for me, for most of my life, really never got past the first 3 letters. Sucky. Yeah. It didn't go very well. And it really came to a head, this relationship that success and I were having. It's a real rocky one. And so 5 years ago, I found myself at date night. Yeah, not with success, but my marriage was really struggling, and we were thinking that a great option would be date night. I know John Witry was suggesting date night, but I don't know if any of you have thought that date night would be a really great way to save your marriage. Didn't go so awesome. I'm obviously divorced, so that didn't go so well, but date night did not end very awesome, especially not that night. Because I was sitting there in this Chinese restaurant in Edwards, Colorado. The overwhelming sense of failure in my life just got to be too much. I was thinking of all the times that I just failed. And here I was, sitting in this restaurant doing everything I could to save my marriage, and there was one thing on my mind, and that's I just didn't love him. I didn't love him the way that I felt I should, and I was really in love with another man. And the shame I felt about that, and I had been for years trying to force myself to feel a particular way that I just didn't feel. And so in that moment, another thought came, and it's one that I had had a lot. And that's I just want to kill myself. That with all this failure, that felt like the best thing for me to do. So I left that restaurant, and I was clear. And for the first time, I gave myself permission to die. I'd been fighting with that thought, fighting with it. And today, in that moment, I was going to do it. And I knew into my core I was going to do it. And so I drove home. I knew how I was going to do it. I had the means at home to do it. And I was driving home. I just felt this unbelievable peace. And I think it was the first time in a really long time that I actually felt happy. And I was like, huh. And it was interesting because it was a lot like the exercise that we did a little earlier with Brad. Not that that made me want to kill myself. But in taking those values and dropping them one by one, I felt like that's what I did. I just let go of everything. I said goodbye to everything. And finally, I was at peace. And so I was really enjoying that peaceful moment, like my pain's going to be over. And in that moment of this peace, a new thought came in. And it was a thought that I hadn't had before, at least not that I could remember. And that's, what if I lived my life for me? What if I said yes to the things I want to do? Because when I grew up, our family motto, at least my dad's family motto, which became our family motto, was roll with the flow. Can't even tell you how many times I heard that, roll with the flow. And what I thought that meant was do what everybody else is asking you to do. Don't speak up and don't say no. I was like, okay, so I got really good with rolling with the flow, other people's flow. And when I was in high school, I got up the courage once to say no. And that did not go well for me. So I promised myself I wouldn't say no again. And so I'd built this life, and I don't know if any of you can relate to that, of feeling like I'm living my life for somebody else. I'm saying yes to everybody else. I wouldn't even know what that would look like for me. So in this moment, this new thought came in. What if there was another way to live life? What if there was more to it? And I was like, wow, well, I can kill myself anytime, so might as well check that one out. And so that was 5 years ago, and here I am. It's going really well, checking that out. And that's what I want to share with you guys today, this new way. Because I found that, in fact, there was a different way to live life, and there was something more to it. And so that's that's so awesome. I always forget to turn in my hours, which I did today too. Awesome. Yeah. So success. Perfect. Success. That's a little bit of my journey and how it started out with success, but I want for just a second you to focus on that word success. And how does it make you feel when you think of the word success? Where do you feel it in your body? Do you feel expansive? Does stuff open up? Do you feel inspired? Or does it make your stomach hurt? Does it make your chest feel tight? And we'll talk a little bit about that, but just noticing what your relationship is to success and how that's going for you. So what is this thing that we keep talking about? What is success? What does that mean? And Robert Holden once told me, your definition of success influences every other significant decision in your life. And I was like, wow. Like, that's a big deal. Because, when you're going down the road of life, it would be really nice to know who's at the wheel, right? So what is my definition of success? And I really wanted to know, because that's the direction that you're headed in. And is that a good thing? Is it working for you? So we've seen this before a couple times today, the goal line of life. And what I got and what I keep seeing over and over again is there's a good place to be on this goal line of life and a not so awesome place to be on this goal line of life. You're either not doing it, you're not successful. Who in here would like to be successful? Right? We all want this thing. We all want to be successful. Yet what are we really talking about? Or are you really crushing it? Are you nailing it? And how does that feel? So for me, starting with the not awesome, I really went for it, and I felt like that's what happened. I went for it in a couple different ways. One, and it started when I was little, our family would hike. We grew up in Colorado, and we go hiking. And when we go hiking, I'd tell my mom, I gotta pee. And so I'd go into the woods. And they kept thinking, gosh, every time we go hiking, Molly has to pee a lot. But I wasn't peeing. And what was happening is I was throwing up. And every time we'd go up into the mountains and hike, I'd get really nauseous, and I'd get dizzy, and I'd throw up. And so what I made that mean is I'm a terrible hiker. I've really failed at this thing that my family loves, and I'm just lazy and out of shape. And so there's failure. I failed. And then the other great love of my family is skiing. I'm the only one in my family that's not in the ski business. I work in suicide prevention, and they're all in the ski business. And see how that went. So when we'd go up all the time, that's what we did. We went skiing, and what we did, you roll with the flow. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a skier. And then you become a skier, and then you become a ski racer. And so I went off the race team. I'm racing, and I'm not kidding you. I was in a race, and I skied out of the race course to go say hi to my mom. She's like, get back in there. And so I skied back into the course, and I finished in like a great time of like 5 minutes when everybody else was under 60 seconds. So I was not an awesome skier, and I meant that like I really fail at this too. And this amazing coach who just loved me. And he used to always sing, "Good golly, Miss Molly," every time I was skiing down. And they didn't have the whole ski team clap for me and cheer. And I think his way of loving me. But to me, it was mortifying that the whole team had to encourage me because I was that bad. At least that's the way that I took it to be. So again, another area that I had really failed. And then in high school, this one time when I said no, felt like I experienced a failure that I just couldn't recover from. And my older brother, Ben, was diabetic, and he really struggled to keep his insulin levels in check. So he was having a hard time. He had a hard time all the time. And so in high school, earlier in the week, he had had a diabetic reaction while driving, passed out, and he hit something with his truck, and it dented the front end of his truck. And I don't know if that scared me. And one thing I've learned, I'm usually a lot more comfortable feeling anger than feeling hurt. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. So after that accident, I was starting to get angry. But again, roll with the flow, don't say anything, so I'm holding it in. And so for 3 days, I'm just holding this in, and I'm just angry at him. I'm really mad. And that's something else I didn't express either, much anger. And so after school one afternoon, my brother came and he asked me, actually, no, he didn't ask me. There was no request in this. He told me that I was going to go to town with him to get that truck fixed. And finally, the rolling with the flow wasn't happening. And I told him, no, I'm not doing this. And it wasn't in a nice, polite way either. I told him how selfish I thought he was, and how him requiring so much of my parents' attention was really hurting me. That all the A's that I have worked so hard to get, that my parents didn't see them because they were so focused on his F's. And all the doctor's appointments they went to for him, they weren't coming to my things. And all this stuff just came out. And then I said, I can't stand you. And I slammed the door. And I was so mad. And he didn't say anything. He didn't say anything back. In fact, he was pretty calm. So the next day I was still mad. I didn't talk to him in the morning. So mad I decided to ride the bus to high school with the elementary school rather than ride with him that day. That's bad. So I get to school and I'm at lunch and I'm getting my lunch out of the locker. And I see my brother coming up. He wants to say something. And have you guys ever had that feeling of like, not yet, I'm still mad. I still want to be mad. So I still want to be mad. So I slam my locker shut and I turn my back. And that's the last time I ever saw him. He got in that car and he drove home an hour later and had another diabetic reaction, this time head on with another car, and he was killed instantly. And so to me, when I heard that, I failed. I just failed my brother. What I did just killed him. Because if I would have just said yes and did what my family taught me to do, roll with the flow, he'd still be here. And so to me, it was that over and over. Just this overwhelming sense of failure all the time. And then that moment at date night, it was like, I just can't do it anymore. So for me, that end of it, I felt like I could relate to all the time. And it's kind of hard to tell you how I felt in that moment when I thought I'd failed my family in such that way, but I think I can show you. So I have $100. So if I was going to give this to somebody, who would want it? Right? Like, let's be honest, who doesn't want $100, right? So I have this nice, shiny 100, right? Everybody would want it. But what if I took the 100 and I crinkled it? And then I dropped it. And then I stepped on it. And then I abandoned it and walked away from it. Now, who wants it? Right? Why? Look at this thing. It's been stepped on. It's been abandoned. It looks disgusting. It doesn't even really look like the 100 anymore. Why would you guys still want it? It still has value, right? It's still worth 100. So easy for us to see that with money. It doesn't lose its value. That would be so weird, right? To go to the grocery store and you're buying stuff and you pay, and the lady's handing you your change. And you're like, oh, no, no, no. That one's a little old. That one's got writing on it, and that one's crinkly. Could you give me some new, fresh ones? That would be great. Weird, right? We don't care what the money looks like. We don't care what it's been through because we know it holds its value. Easier to see with money. And that's one thing that I didn't get there. I didn't realize that I couldn't lose my value. Because what happened that afternoon when my brother died, I felt like my value went to 0. That when I couldn't hike with my family, it was like at a 60. And then when I couldn't ski, it was like at a 40. And then that day it went to 0. And I felt like I didn't have any value, that I was worthless. And so, where does that happen, that we start decreasing our value when we're not able to crush it on this goal line? And where is that happening for you? Where maybe have you started to chink away at your value? So that's super heavy. What about moving on to this side? You're right, like, okay, I thought it's about motivating here. So on the positive experience, I had a lot of success. One thing that I happen to be really good at is school. From once I left elementary school until I graduated from high school, I just got 1 B. The rest were A's. And I graduated near the top of my class and was accepted to the college of my choice, which at the time was one of the top colleges in the nation. And I double majored in a science with honors. Incredibly challenging academically, but I did it. And then I graduated and came back to Colorado and went and got my MBA and graduated with a 4.0. Like, to me, it's like, wow, I'm really achieving some amazing things. The day that I got my certificate from Regis University with the MBA, I got an amazing job working for a physician in Vail. And after a couple years of working with him, he said, Molly, whatever you want, whatever amount of money you want to make, I'll pay it. And however much time you want off, you can have it. Just please stay and help me keep this practice going. Like, that's crushing it, right? However much money you want, you tell me, and you can have as much time off as you want. So I was thinking, like, this is it. I've been doing all the things. I've been doing all the things that I thought I should. I've been rolling with the flow. And yet, I was so dead inside. I was so miserable. I was really at the height of my suicidal crisis. And so I was like, what the heck? I can't win. No matter if I'm crushing it or I'm landing on my face, it's just every one of these times I'm struggling. So that's when that night I was like, there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way to do this because I just feel so unfulfilled. Can any of you relate to that? Like going for, yes. You're going for something and you get it and you're like, God, is this it? Is this all that there is? Yeah, I felt that way a lot. So I did what I do and I was like, let's get some research. So I'm like, okay, let's find happiness. There's got to be, everybody out there seems super happy, so what's the deal? People are like, just be happy. I'm like, thanks. Don't you think I would have just chosen that earlier? So here I am, and so I decided to go to the happiest place on earth. You guys, Yeah, I went there, and I went there super serious. I went there with my backpack and my notebook. I'm not kidding. And I went and I studied. In fact, there's an institute at Disney. This was like the biggest exciting thing in my life. Like, oh my God, I can go really study happiness here at Disney World. And so I was super serious, and they do have an amazing institute, which was great, but I still wasn't finding it. Until, this looks familiar, right? I can thank Stephen McGee for prepping my talk. So, yeah, there was this other thing called a soul line. My gosh, there was another line. Because this line's sucky for me. But this line, oh my God, there's a learning line. And I wasn't even going to say it, but Stephen helped you say it already. So soul line. There was this soul line. And the way that it was explained to me at the University of Santa Monica was that this isn't really the end game, the goal line. And this was, to me, such great news. Like somebody else was getting it. Somebody else was getting me. But you could participate on the goal line in order to advance on the soul line, to learn. And so what that was like is that when I started going for things and when I started putting goals out there, it was in order to heal myself, such that I had a goal to run a half marathon. And on this line, if I didn't come in first or second, I failed. Like I didn't win at that. And then I would go beat myself up again and chink away at my value, maybe then go into the negatives. Now I'm negative 10 because I sucked at that too. But in the soul line orientation, it was like, well, I'm going to go out, I'm going to run this just because I want to, because it just sounds fun to me. I love running. And when I did go do that, I had to walk part of it. And so now it wasn't, how is this demeaning my value? But when that stuff started coming up, that triggering stuff, that voice, the one that's not super nice, but telling me I'm not good enough, like, okay, now I can work with this. And then I could start to heal the part of me that I had isolated, the part of me, the hiking part that always had to throw up in the woods and say, okay, wow, what did I make that mean about myself? And I could start to bring my value back. So I'd decrease my value in saying, like, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. But with this orientation, I could use that. I could use my participation on the goal line in order to start healing myself and coming back whole. Do you guys remember what Stephen was saying this morning about integration when you looked up the definition? He used the word integral and having integrity and wholeness. And to me, this is what this was about. It was like reclaiming all the pieces that I had forsaken in myself. Said, yeah, I don't like that part, and you're not going to see that part of me. And so with this new orientation to life, I was repairing all of that, bringing myself back into whole, bringing myself back into whole value. So in a lot of times in participating on the goal line, it's motivated by desperation. Because there's nothing wrong with me, or anybody ever had the thought, I'm not good enough? Yeah, like maybe once, right? So I'm not good enough, but maybe if I can get more over here, more would fix it. If I'm not enough, maybe more would fix it. And so if I could just get into the right school, if I could just marry the right guy, then maybe I'll feel better. And that desperation energy is a real low energy. Ever felt exhausted at the end of your day? Like just super tired, super drained? That's what happens when we start letting all the shoulds, and I should do this, and I'll just roll with the flow. That's what starts happening when you're motivated by desperation, motivated by there's something wrong with me and I need to fix it. I need to earn my value. I need to prove myself. It's a low energy, and you can do it. But a lot of times when you hit your goal, you're just done, super exhausted and drained from it. I love this quote. It's an ironic habit of human beings to run faster when they've lost their way. So it's like we're getting busier and busier and going faster and faster because we're feeling more lost and more empty. But on this soul line, motivated by inspiration, what if we were motivated just by just loving it? I want to do this thing just because. I love it. And the energy that can come from that. So I've started asking myself this. Like, if I could let go of needing to get the thing, because on the goal line, like, I thought that that's what life was about. The achieving, the success, getting the thing. And if I didn't get the thing, then I'm not good enough. But what if we were just participating? What if we just created a goal just because we wanted to do it? What would that be? So I want you guys to think about that. What would you go for if you didn't have to get it? What would be fun for you to go for if you didn't have to get it? So I want you guys to take a minute and go around your table. And does everybody have a program? Everybody got one? Great. So if you open it up, there's a page that has my lovely picture on the side, and then there's notes on the other side. And so on the notes, I want you to write down the thing that you would go for if you didn't have to get it. And then share around your table. And if you hear somebody else say something that makes your heart race a little bit, or if you feel yourself saying, like, that would be cool, write that one down too. So take each other's ideas, share. So go ahead and do that for a few minutes and share what would you go for if you didn't really have to get it.
I was 61 before I was supposed to do what I do, which is the social media tutoring. So my excuse wasn't invented, but still, it's nice to find it sometimes. Yeah. It's kind of a tough question.
I'm like really prepared though.
No,
I gotta think about this right now.
Not just God gave me because somebody told me. I gotta write that down. Sorry.
I think I'd build a house. I think I just want to do that.
Do you want to design it yourself?
Absolutely, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Build it.
Yeah, like the-
Sounds like a lot of work and a lot of time that I don't have.
I'm creating something right now. I love adventures. There's a lot of learning that I get through that, and there's a feeling of self-esteem, self-esteem. And I know there's a lot of guys that have been in business that have been very focused on it for 20 years, and they've lost it. They've got all the stuff. They're way down the road on the goal line, but they're spiritually bankrupt. And they don't even know what to do to get themselves. So I'm creating something to help them get there. I go out on adventures, all types, and then having really authentic conversations about what's really going on in our lives, and helping each other be accountable to create something else. The next thing might be financial, and it's just kind of evolved.
Be men and
Right now I'm just doing it with men because I think it's safer for me to have a conversation.
so there's something to be said for that. Actually.
Oh yeah, no, you get some good ones with the kids. That's great. I love it. I love it.
Maybe it'll be
Because I know
I've tried in the past and I've been successful with going at it again. Because I just think it'd be awesome.
Have you guys ever seen the commercial? I think it's an insurance commercial. And it's these little kids, but they're in business suits. And one of them's trying to talk on the phone, and he gets mad, and he just like shoves his phone on the ground. That's what this was like for me, listening to what you guys were sharing. Not that anybody was chucking their cell phones, but that it was like I could see the little kid in you as you're talking about wanting to take tango lessons, which I think that that's rad, and I want to put that on my list too. Or buying a farm, or these things. It's like you can see the little kid getting so excited. And I love that energy. That's what I'm talking about. And to me, the cool thing, I think the soul line is like the coolest thing ever. And I don't know why you don't learn about soul line in first grade. But what's so cool to me about the soul line, let me back up. To get to where I wanted to go. What's really cool about the soul line is it's like a double win. Like I felt like the goal line to me was a double lose. Like I lose if I'm winning and I lose if I'm sucking too. But the soul line was so awesome because to me it's like I couldn't lose at it, which was awesome. One, that something happens when you just go for something just because you love it. It's like you get tapped into this source energy and it fills you up. I'm doing stuff that I love to do right now, working with kids. They're struggling so much like I struggled in high school. And to me, when I'm doing that work, I don't feel tired and exhausted. Last week, I did 5 days of training. And I thought that, I'm giving so much when I do these trainings. And I'm just giving, and I'm loving, and I'm present. I thought I would be exhausted. And I was so excited. I had so much energy by doing something I love to do. So one, that's what happens when you go for something just for the sake of going for it. I mean, kids don't really plan it all out. Am I going to be able to be an astronaut or not? No, they just put the little bucket on their head and they go for it. Like, this is awesome. And so that's the energy that you start to feel when you just go for it. And what's cool is, even if you don't get it, you still have all this amazing energy and you start feeling powerful and you start feeling creative and you start feeling love and you start feeling expansive. So something that I just wanted to do just because I loved it was to write a book. And so I started writing this book, and I was loving it. And my dream was I'm going to write a book, and it's going to be a bestseller, and then my whole life's figured out. Like I wrote a bestseller. It'd be awesome. I'll just go places, and people will just stop me in the airport and have me sign the book, and that'll be great. And then I'll go and talk, and like that'll just be awesome. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go for that. So I write this book, and it comes out, and I get it in my kitchen. One day, the box was sitting there. I'm so excited. I open it up, and there's a copy of my book, and I'm holding it. And I'm thinking to myself, nobody's coming. Like, nothing happens. I don't know what I thought was going to happen when that thing got published. Like, all of a sudden, the lights would just come on, and everybody would just rush to go buy it. Yeah, that didn't happen. I went and I did do a book signing tour, and sometimes 2 people would be in the bookstore, and that would be it. So that didn't happen, but the thing is I wasn't chipping away at my value because I loved it, and I was doing something that I loved to do just for me. And so I was filled up, and my book still isn't a bestseller yet. Somebody told me, win at your own fantasy. So yeah, yet. The next one's coming out soon. Good feeling about it. So that's what I started feeling. I was just so excited because I was doing something that I love to do. So yeah, I totally failed on that one. Not bestseller. Oprah had never called yet. But to me, it was doing something that I love to do and so filled me up doing it. So one, like that's what's awesome, is you get this unbelievable sense of energy. But the second thing is when I started writing the book, I was putting out all the stuff that I really felt like I failed at. I was healing my life in the process. And so all the things that I had thought that had chipped away from my value, from 100, like down all the way to 0, those things, I was starting to bring those things back. All the things that I had so much shame around just by going for them. So it's like, okay, not only do I get to see myself at 100% value, which is super awesome, and I get all this energy, and I can't lose, because it doesn't matter. Whether I get the thing or not, I'm feeling awesome. Backing up. So these are the places in my life that I had so much shame around that I felt like I had just failed. So here is my big brother Ben, my little brother Willie, and I hiking. I'm not sure if I was just about ready to puke or if I had already puked. But there we were. And so when I decided to go to do the half marathon, I got to take a look at that girl that I had thought was so weak. And in going for that half marathon, I got to say, what did I make that mean? I thought it meant I was a terrible hiker. And when I really looked at it, what was really happening is I was struggling with altitude sickness. And after a diagnosis, when I came back from college, I had high altitude pulmonary edema. I realized that I had been sensitive to the altitude all my life. And so I could bring her back into my story too. And now my value is coming up. I'm not a 0 anymore. You know, I'm actually a really good hiker because I can hike awesome and I'm not very good at the altitude. So I can do it really well and still struggle. And I'm okay puking in the woods super quick. Like, no problems. And so I got to bring then the athlete in me. Because I had this story about myself as an athlete. I'm not a great athlete. And by going for things that I just love to do and using that, as we heard earlier today, using everything, I got to start to bring back the athlete in me. Now I have fun skiing. I'm an amazing skier, and I have so much fun doing it. And so this picture is one of, actually every picture on here I don't love, but again, lean in. Lean into it. So college was a pretty tough time for me. I had experienced a lot of trauma and in many ways got beat up. Mentally, physically, I got beat up in college. And so I got to look at that girl and bring all the shame I had around getting raped, getting attacked in college, and to bring that girl back in and say the perseverance that I had to heal those wounds and say, you know what, I'm still here, I'm still so lovable. It didn't mean that I was trash and no good. And I got to heal that by going for stuff on the soul line and bring in the part of me that numbed all that out by doing a lot of drinking in college. Beer pong, I don't know if anyone played, but I was the champ. It was awesome. But I got to bring that side back in too, because it's all part of me. It's all part of my story. And I can say I am who I am today because of the choices I made yesterday, and that's a really good thing, because I'm a pretty big deal. Yeah. And then, I don't know if you guys can see this one, but wow. This part of me, the part of me that endured junior high with a perm, with acne, with braces, and with glasses. Bless her. So again, after getting divorced, I went back out and I'm like, I'm gonna date. And so I really got to take a long look at how much I had abandoned her and said, like, I'm ugly, I'm not attractive, and got to rewrite that story. Again, that's what the soul line really did for me, is I get to use everything. And okay, I'm dating, and now, but when I go out on a date, I feel ugly. Like, why is that? Why do I feel so ugly? People are saying, Molly, you're not ugly, but I felt it. And realizing that's, again, where I had diminished my value, that I had chipped away at who I thought I was by all these limiting beliefs. And that's what the soul line, that learning orientation to life, really helped me do, is to bring all of these back into who I am, own all of them. And then the role that I had the hardest time bringing back in was my role as a sister, because I really thought that I had failed him. That's my big brother. That's the last picture that we had together. He died in January of when we were in high school, and that was taken at Christmas. And so that was a tough one, to really go back and to heal what I had made that mean about myself that day. I really thought I was a murderer. That's how I held it. And in going to USM and healing these things, that's when I got to take a look at who am I as a sister and start to heal that. And one thing that I saw one day that forever changed my life is that my brother got something awesome that last day. In that last conversation with him, I was authentic. I said what was true for me, and he got to see me. Nobody had seen it up to that point. So my brother left knowing me. And there was like a smile, kind of a smirk in his face that I never really understood, but I got it in that moment. Because I think that that's what he was here to teach me. And he poked, and he poked, and he poked, and he poked, until finally I was really able to speak up and to say no in a way. And something else I learned is that when you learn to say no, you actually get to say yes. Your yes means something now. So really embracing my role as a sister to my big brother and seeing how much love I have for him and how much love I feel for him, and to realizing that I've always so adored him. And it is an unbelievably special relationship. And now I get to be an amazing big sister to my little brother Willie. And I love that relationship. It's lighthearted. We tease each other. Do you guys ever do that thing when you were little where somebody would sit on your chest and kind of start to spit and then like suck it back up? Totally, you guys have done that? Yeah. But just that playful spirit that you can kind of only do with your brother, and it's okay. But Willie and I laugh a lot. I laugh more with him than anybody. And I find myself laughing a lot these days. And the other amazing thing that I've found is that's the area that I thought I just don't have a lot of value as a sister. And now as I've really embraced myself as a sister, all of a sudden I have these amazing men that have come into my life in the role of a brother. And so if you guys have seen in the partnership, there's a lot of big brothers that I have. And it's unbelievable, so many of them in this room that are such, I feel that same way, that same spirit of unbelievable brothers to me. And that's, I think, where I'm the best now. Like, I'm a great sister. I've, made this partnership amazing by my light and my energy and my sister as I come and I participate. And another one, this is kind of a tough one. That's my dad. And this journey with my dad has been a little tough for me too, because I was okay really sucking on the goal line. And I was okay to fail at that for me, but I just didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to disappoint my dad. And so, I felt like I was just craving his attention, his approval, and I wanted it so bad. And I thought I had to earn it. Because as I chipped away at my value, I thought he would see me that way too. And so it was a tough go. And I did some really weird things in some relationships trying to feel special. Trying to feel like how I felt when I was little with him before all of this goal line thing got in the way. And as Bob just looked at the picture of his daughter, he said, love her more than anything. Love her more than life itself. I now realize that my dad feels that way about me, and he's always felt that way about me. And I think he was way more concerned about disappointing me than I was about him. So it's been interesting, but to have such a fun relationship with my dad now. We spend a lot of time together, and we laugh a lot, which is super fun to bring that role back into. So in my view, success for me is knowing who I am. Success is going for the things that I love, really with the end game being, if there's any part of me that isn't at 100, that I get to bring those things back in and I get to work on it and I get to really see who I am. So in my view, success is knowing who you are. And so think for a moment for you. What is success about for you? What is your definition of success? Does it inspire you? Does it include those, some of those values that some of you may have worked on earlier listening to Brad? Does it encompass those things? Do you feel, where's your value? Do you feel like even those days when you get out there and you fall flat on your face, do you still see that you're 100? Are you starting to, or sometimes do you feel like your value has been chipped away? And what definition of success could it have you showing up in all your light, in all your love, knowing that you never could be, never were, and never would be anything but 100? It just wouldn't be possible. Like we couldn't make that $100 bill anything less, and we couldn't make you anything less either. And the interesting thing is this holds true for companies too, which is amazing. Apple, for example. Apple really knows who they are. They're very clear about their why. They're very clear about the products that they make. And so Apple asking themselves, how can we be more Apple today, makes them an incredibly successful business. It's kind of like finally when you start letting go of the thing that you thought you always needed. It's like, oh, I don't need that anymore. And then all of a sudden it starts showing up, which is what I've started experiencing. Finally, when I let go of needing to make a lot of money, needing to be successful and liked, it's like when that stuff isn't important, all of a sudden now it shows up huge, right? Southwest Airlines is another great example. My dad was a pilot, and so very clear when we were little, kind of the trouble that a lot of the airlines would experience, and that was just seemed to be a part of the airline cycle as they would go bankrupt and they'd start over again. But Southwest Airlines posting a profit for 42 consecutive years. No other airline has been able to do that. And why? Like, what makes Southwest so successful? Drinks and snacks, right? It's like fun on that plane. They're like happy to be there. Some of the other airlines, it's like, whoa, not super nice greeting. It's like one time I was going to ask for something, can I? And it was like, no. At least they've got their no practice down pretty well. But Southwest Airlines knows they're outrageously fun. They're loving. They put a big heart on their planes. How cool is that? They have a heart with wings on it. And they have really quick turnaround, so they know who they are. So yeah, that's something that you can ask yourselves, how could I be more me today? Or in your company? The thing that makes your company so great or your business so great, how could it be even more of that? I love this one too. Human beings have always employed an enormous variety of clever devices for running away from themselves. We can keep ourselves so busy, fill our lives with so many diversions, stuff our head with so much knowledge, involve ourselves with so many people, and cover so much ground that we never have time to probe the fearful and wonderful world within. And that was certainly my journey. I was so busy trying to get there. You guys ever felt that way? Like, if I can just get there, then I'll finally be happy, finally get that thing. And I was so filled up with all these things, but I felt dead inside. And when I let go of doing that, let go of doing what I think everybody else wants me to do, let go of what I should do, and just follow my heart, just follow my joy and do stuff that I love to do, I get to look inside, I get to do that work within, and start to see myself as I really am, who I really am, and get to know myself. And to me, that is one of the most moving things on the planet. And to me, it felt, I haven't climbed Aconcagua, but I could really relate to the emotion of just feeling profound gratitude and almost crying and just being in awe. To me, that's what that seemed like when they were on top of Aconcagua. And to me, when I help a student that's thinking of killing themselves, or help an inmate, or help a dad that's really struggling, when I help them by sharing my own love and my own light and using this as a model and demonstrating that so that they get to witness the miracle of loving themselves and they get to start to see themselves with some value, that's the feeling that I get. Just so full of gratitude to get to see somebody fall in love with themselves. And that's the work that I get to do. I get to help people fall in love with themselves all the time. So cool. So ask yourself, how can I be even more me today? How could I be even more me? What is me? What's the special sauce? What's the special juice about me? And how can I bring just even 1% more of that? What would that look like? How could you bring more you? And this is another one from Robert Holden, which I love. If you think something's missing in your life, it's probably you. And that's one thing that I realized that was not present at date night at all 5 years ago. I was nowhere in my own life. I'd never even asked myself what I want to do, what I would love to do. And that's what I've been doing every day, 5 years, asking that, how could I be more me? And today, I just feel so grateful for the work that I get to do, to be a part of this partnership, to share this with you, to work with kids that are suicidal, and to help them love themselves, to help communities love themselves, and start to really change this conversation about suicide in our country, and realizing I wasn't the only one that was struggling. I think the more that we can all stand up and speak up and share our light and share our greatness, we start to see that we all have a lot more in common than we thought, and we're all at 100. And so thank you. Thank you for letting me see your light. Such an honor. Thank you guys for being here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.